Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you day 437 of Russian invasion into Ukraine, with former advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Olexiy Arestovych, and Russian opposition politician and lawyer Mark Feygin. As always, thank you for your support, retweets, likes, shares, and super thanks. Bill, you're definitely noticed. Also, this week we made it to Ukraine War Podcasts, top 25 best podcasts about the war in Ukraine. I think we're somewhere on position number 10. If you're curious, there are some good things there. Check it out. It's at the description of this video. And now, day 437. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Saturday, May 6th. Time is 8 o'clock, 3 minutes past 8 in Kiev, and same time in Moscow. Day 437. Hello, Olexiy. I think I've seen you somewhere. Right, it's not a secret. It's not a secret. We are meeting in Kiev. I'm here with a visit. Unfortunately, our technical capability does not allow us to be both around the same table. We're both casting from the studio, so even though we're pretty close to each other, we are streaming from two different machines, so we'll have to be in these two separate windows. Regardless, that we've spent a lot of time today with Olexiy discussing a ton of different events. It is unusual time for us, so it's only 30,000 starting with us. About 12,000 clicked the like button. We came live about 2 hours earlier. And so if you do have, my usual ask, if you do have an opportunity to share links, please do that. That definitely helps. It's Saturday, so that is fantastic. Also, do not forget to click the like button and subscribe if you have not done that yet to my channel, to Olexiy Arestovych's channel, where he streams as well, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. Alright, let's discuss Prelipin. This is the other second most important news in the media. People are discussing the explosion of his vehicle, death of his driver, and as I read, he's undergone some surgery. So this seems to be an interesting trend unfolding with the propagandists of Kremlin. It's difficult to say here, Mark, because our special services do not take any responsibility. I don't know, special services, private people, private citizens, nobody took responsibility for that. But in Russia, they already came out and said that they caught a couple Ukrainians who already confirmed that it was them who done it. But of course, in Russia, who else is now being caught? Used to be Chechens, now it's Ukrainians that they catch for everything and blame for everything. So there are different versions about why did that happen. Most leading of them is leading also towards his stance with some other forces in Russia, maybe with criminal relations. Yeah, there's a ton of versions out now. Do you think these events might scare them? Well, Mark, the propagandists who are active, they will not continue doing that. They don't know how to do anything else. They need to continue riding this train to the wall. It might stop new propagandists who would want to become, but that might get them thinking and perhaps choose a different occupation in life. And the big ones, the ones that you see on TV in Russia, those are usually guarded. They have protection. Yes, they do have a protection. And the smaller caliber ones like Tatarsky and such, here's, the fate can play out different scenarios. So, do you see an excuse for Moscow to start killing journalists, popular people in Europe or in Ukraine? See, like, doesn't matter who actually attempted that assassination, or who blew up Tatarsky and daughter of Dugin. We are retaliating for that. Do you think Russian special services can come to such a conclusion? Mark, when did they need an excuse? That's right, that's right. So as for Ukraine and Europe, it's not so easy to kill here, especially after Salisbury, after all these spiels and everything. Special services here work differently here. It doesn't mean that it's important, it just makes it much more difficult. And in Ukraine, it's counteroffensive regime in effect now, so it is much, much more difficult. It's not impossible, but technically it will take a lot more skill and resources. So, looking at Russia, apparently they are looking at the number of these assassinations, they are less protected, right? And I would agree in Europe and in Ukraine, which is at war, it is much more difficult. How is their services weaker than, for example, special services of Ukraine? Mark, how do they work in the normal time? They usually cooperate with people in the criminal world. And when the country is not in the state of war, special services and police, they work in a certain mode. They eavesdrop and they work their contacts in a certain way. And responsibility for not reporting and disobeying would be one. But if the country is at war, it is different. They basically reach out to their contacts and tell them, hey, if we see that you knew about something, that you saw the motion of weapons or the motion of agents, and you saw that and you didn't tell us, there is nothing I can help you with. You'll just bear the whole brunt of punishment along with those who executed. And they do talk like that to everybody, to all layers of criminality. And they very well, the criminal world understands that pretty well, where is their usual criminal activity, where international criminal activity lies, but where is also the struggle of their country against the enemy. And they know that an attempt to disobey, to go and try to make money in the field of the military enemy, supporting the war enemy of your country, your life and career will be short. So in this regard, that's the wartime difference from the peacetime. All the procedures are much shorter, faster, and harsher. And Russia is huge, right? You just look at territorially, look at their prohibitions of UAVs. Half of their subjects already prohibited UAV flights on their territory, but the other half still fine with it. They think they're so far away and they don't care. So, of course, over there you can find people in the criminal world who can execute different things and carry out different missions for you. All right, I got your message. As usual, in our live streams now, we are carrying out a poll. So today's question is, who was attempting to assassinate Prelipin, Ukraine or his own? I'm not going to unwrap what do we mean here. It's pretty straightforward. So about 437 voted, 15% are saying it's Ukraine, 85% are saying his own. And we're not clarifying who are the own: FSB, somebody in Russia. So basically, let's put it this way: everything that is not Ukraine. So those who are watching us, please continue voting, and do not forget that we are in a very unusual time today on air. Because of my visit, we have a lot of things planned for the evening. And if you can share, if you can click the like button, please do that. And please post a link to that stream in your social media. All right. Mark, look, what they can use it for is not to shoot us with another missile or to assassinate somebody. They're doing that daily. But what they can use this information reason for is to tighten their bolts within Russia. So they probably will become harder on the opposition or any outburst against the war in Russia. All right, let's go to the next news. The head of Zelensky's office, Andriy Yermak, announced that you've exchanged 45 defenders of Azov Steel. Three of them are women, the rest are men. 35 soldiers, 10 officers, and I see that the exchange is going. and there was discussed an option to exchange everybody for everybody. And according to your data, do we have any number of how many prisoners of war are on each side? Mark, it is difficult to tell because numbers are very different. The ones that you see in the media, they seriously differ. What about the scale, general scale of it? Let's leave it to the official media. When I was in the official speaker of the office of the president, I could play with these numbers, but right now I'll let them do it themselves. For now, we have over 10,000 people missing, active servicemen missing in action. I think the last number I saw was 13,000 missing in action, and which number of them are in prison, in captivity, I don't know. And there were numbers from Minister of Defense, from Bubinets, who is in charge of the rights of prisoners of war. So let me Google, let me check what was happening, what's the latest we have. You know that change 10,000 or change 40, these are very different exchanges, right? Of course, but I do have to say that we continue the effort. And right now these numbers are going down due to our activity. So Lubinets dispelled. 22nd of February, he made a statement. He said that the information that Russia has over 3,000 prisoners of war of Ukrainian defenders is not truthful. I cannot confirm exact number, how many are there, but this is not a correct one. And I need to bring you to your attention that these numbers, Russia is not disclosing them, we are not disclosing them either. And we're just trying to save as many people as we can. And he says that there are about 20,000 civilians who are in prison in Russia, but that's according to their relatives. And earlier, one of the publications in Ukraine mentioned that it's over 3,000 military that are in captivity and over 15 or 13 are missing. So see, even here there is some disparity in numbers, and I would suggest ask official representatives and not me about this matter. All right, let's take a look at what's happening on the fronts and see what Prigozhin and the rest are talking about. So in Sumy region, 6 people of emergency services died during the shelling. We express our condolences to their relatives. It is a noble profession. I did send thanks to them numerously. They're savers. They're the ones who come there to aid the wounded ones, and very often they come to the places during active shellings without an opportunity to shoot back or protect themselves, and they suffer and also suffer losses. So this is a very noble line of work. All right, on the border of Zaporozhskaya and Donetsk regions, that's Vuhledar, there is a bit of fighting, tactical level there, and the enemy is still trying to push near Avdiivka and Marinka. They still tried to attempt to surround Avdiivka without much success. And in Bakhmut, the fighting is heaviest. We're still holding parts of that town. And our actions the week before, you could see we pushed them away from the yellow road between Ivanovsk, that goes through Ivanovsk, between Ivanovsk in the south and Khromovo near the lake at the north. We've been trying to push them wider away from it, and of course they're pushing back, trying to create a fire control area on this road so they would preclude the transportation activities. And we'll go to more news later, but right now let's follow the map. Zolotaryovka and Belogorovka, and you can see that they're trying to attack a little bit, but their ambitions are low. Here's Zolotaryovka, where the mouse is. And if you go higher north, again, tactical fights all along that line. They try to attack there actively. It was one of the main directions. You see a lot of squares, a lot of battle-worthy detachments there, but they're all sitting and waiting for the results near Bakhmut. And the landscape is not really friendly in that area. It's mostly hills, forests, tight defense lines. Last week, actually, there was news that we captured 10 prisoners of war from the Russian side. And that tells you that there's a lot of tactical fighting happening there. All right, let's discuss then the next series of statements by Prigozhin. The juiciest one is that we're gonna take off and leave Bakhmut and let other detachments of Ministry of Defense, they said first, then Kadyrov said they'll put Akhmat battalion to defend it. And I actually have a message from an insider saying that indeed Russian troops can swap positions, and if they will be giving that Bakhmut area to Kadyrov's Akhmat battalion, this is not exactly a Chechen battalion, this is a mixed one. He created that out of the volunteers throughout Russia who wanted to join him, and they would be the ones to take Wagner positions if that happens. So this is not Kadyrov's guard. No, it's mercenaries, so to say. Exactly, Akhmat from the beginning was a different animal. It was not really a Chechen native detachment. It was sort of a Wagner version, their version of Wagner, where they aggregated people from all over Russia, and they started using them same way as Wagner did, into the meat grinder. I don't know what rotation, what number of, how many times they replace the personnel in this one, but he's definitely not going to risk his close people. He will need them to keep his region under control later, and he already sees that as a result of this war, he'll need to use that to defend his own fiefdom in the south of Russia. And he tried to use them early at the beginning of the war. They suffered huge losses, and after that they are avoiding direct military contact on the front. But the way I see that situation is that on one hand, Ministry of Defense of Russia and General Command, they started to put Wagner down in the manner they can. What kind? Do they have shell hunger? Artillery shells deficiency? Yes, that, or not enough food. And I am quite sure what they were doing that. They basically were normalizing the levels of support similar to any other detachments on the front. Because until then, Wagner was using more, was getting more, was using more, including internal resources. There were several scandals that leaked into the open. And most accusation was they were visiting other troops and buying different shells, artillery shells that they needed for dollars. And they were just buying, and they had 6 times more than the usual army detachments, and that's their partial success due to that. And when they were normalized and that practice was prohibited, their results became very close to the usual ones, and the losses became similar to the other detachments. Plus, they're also running out of their personnel. He tried to continue fighting when they took away his inmate resource, when Minister of Defense stopped providing him inmates and that resource. He sent his cadre, professionals, into the fight, and they started to suffer huge losses. And I suspect the number of these losses reached the unacceptable level. And he wants to save, to preserve the cadre core of his troop. Otherwise, he'll just lose and have to completely refit the whole unit. And he's basically continuing to use the same strategy that he used before. It is the same hammer that once worked for him. So he's trying to do with Russian different interests, different little czars and leaders of different groups and positions in Russia. He's trying to do the same as he did in Africa, when he was working with Mali and other places where he was carrying out dirty work, and he needed to navigate between different political leaders, and basically that's what he is doing now in this war. So when he saw that things are not working out, he turned to Shoigu, Gerasimov, and said, If you want us to carry out this dirty work, and we showed you that we can, we took Popasna, Lysychansk, Severodonetsk. So even if you're not letting us do that and you don't listen to Putin, then you go talk to Putin. We'll withdraw from the front line and we'll let you guys duke it out. So that's how it worked in Africa. For example, he needed to go take some mines that army did not control. He brings his army, takes over the mines, and if he's mistreated or not paid enough, he basically says, okay, now I take my troops out, and you guys do as you like here. And then he usually would be paying. So, same thing in Sudan. The army is getting money from oil, and the special services are making money on gold. And the army decided to put one set of special services under their command, and special services said, no, go F yourselves, and that's the nature of the civil unrest. But the method is the same as Africans will. It needs money, it needs something else, political support, and then there are ones who cannot carry it out. Local troops they're too frail to do that. So they get the mercenaries who can do it for them. And that's his whole message. Remember, when he comes out and says, when you failed, you invited us to the front, we came here and we did the dirtiest work for you. And now if you're not supporting us, and you're not supporting us in this privileged duty, then you go and do it yourself. And given the political value of that, let's the main leader go figure out with you. And he's just blackmailing them. And after that is just the usual criminal inmate culture that he is a part of. He is using that scheme, knowing the weakness of Minister of Defense that allows him to treat him like that, and basically attacks him back only bureaucratically and not in force. So he is using this opportunity to climb to the next ladder, to the next step on that ladder, which is pretty tight. You mentioned before he is probably level 4, level 5. He is trying to climb one level higher. And you can do it when somebody becomes weaker. And that's one of the ways that he is using. He is not attacking the leader. He is taking one or two in his vicinity and is trying to channel people's anger towards these people. And that's what he is doing. He is pointing at, in his latest video, to the dead bodies and saying, look, the mothers and children of these are in tears, and we're wasting their relatives on this front because your generals are not supporting us. And that's what he is doing. He is using that blackmail and channeling. Political blackmail, public blackmail. People and Tsar are together. The dukes are bad people. Generals are horrible. Let's go attack them. And this is a very understood, very standard scheme. And here I'm looking at the Minister of Defense of Russia, because they also may be rather happy. They don't really care either for Ahmad, nor for Kadyrov and Prigozhin. And here Prigozhin is threatening to throw Ahmad instead of himself into that front. Minister of Defense probably shrugging, saying, oh, awesome, then we'll lose less paratroopers and Marines in this area. So I think that's a layered situation in brief. All right. So he's talking in a pretty expressive manner. Gerasimov, FU, Shoigu, MFR. Yeah, he feels that they're somewhat weak because they're not liked at the court. They took upon themselves to carry out this war, and they failed. So you think they won't take Bakhmut till the 9th? I don't know, Mark. If Russian troops managed to achieve what they set out to, if they captured half of Ukraine, you know the level of their grandeur, the level of their power in Russia, it would have risen dramatically. The FSB would be cleaning their floors. And they would have a ton of power if they succeeded. And here, they came here and lost a lot, didn't capture anything. It's like a series of idiocy and unprofessionalism that they demonstrate. And Prigozhin did mention somewhere that if army was actually getting ready and prepared for this war for 10 years, then they wouldn't even need Wagner on the front. They would just use their own forces. And here the message is, hey, you got a ton of money, you had a task to reform yourself so you can capture neighbors and their territories, and you failed, and your name is nothing. So he understands they're weak. He can bite them, he can chew on them, and nothing is going to happen to him. They had 17 commanders replaced during less than 17 months, and they cannot answer his attacks. The fact that Russian army is weak became also obvious when military intelligence administration lost one of their letters. They lost the intelligence part. FSB officers were put in charge of some of the branches, so they swallowed everything. They were quiet, they didn't push back. So this is a typical Russian story. And after the First Chechen War, remember, there were several generals who became heavier politically after the First War. Rokhlin, Kazantsev, Lebed, they all were assassinated. Different accidents, different things, suicides, supposedly. So it was always a political infighting. And now this is a reason to change the situation under the throne of the Tsar, and they're weak, and Prigozhin is sensing that, so he definitely is trying to use that situation to his advantage. And what's that? Mizintsev, right, the one who destroyed, killed people near Mariupol, who's trying to get up, and he's friends with Surovikin also. So there are different groups that become stronger, different groups that become weaker, and he understands that if he manages to move their figures away, he might be able to take their place. It's Byzantine politics. And in some essence, Byzantine politics is an ongoing civil war. And this is like a fake myth about USSR that Stalin and party controlled everything, that everything was uniform and controlled. Those people who had access to the actual war and warring parties of the powers in Soviet Union, everybody knew that there was a continuous civil war going between them. Yeah, remember the murder when the police, drunk police officers killed the deciphering specialist of the intel services. That war lasted for over a year between two agencies. Regardless of Communist Party in power, that was just a hidden civil war under the carpet back in the Soviet times. These times it's just more visible. Back in the day, in the 20th century, people didn't know much of that, but these days everything leaks out and you can tell. I can tell these stories for probably hours because I was privy to some of it, and I heard them from people participating in them. So there was always that fighting and bickering. There was always that slowly burning civil war under the throne. They understand that nobody can get to the first three layers. That's where the 70-year-old patriarchs and leaders are sitting, so nobody gets a chance to that, but you can definitely fight for any position underneath him. And that's the way they do. That's the school they learned. They gotta try to stifle and strangle the ones above you and shit and pee on those who are underneath him. And that's his inmate culture. He picked a victim and he's attacking that relentlessly in the nomenclature. Alright, we've been live for 28 minutes, 124,000 are with us, over 50,000 click the like button. Today is an unusual day, unusual time for our stream. We're doing it 2 hours earlier than usual. I'm here in Kiev and I need to make it to a couple more meetings, so please continue sharing links, clicking the like button. Make sure that people do not come here at 10 p.m. We cannot do that at 10 today. And we cannot stay live for the whole 24-hour time. But if you do share that, there's a chance they can still make it to the live stream. And if you have not subscribed to our channels yet, please do it, as well as Privateer Station, if you are listening or watching that in English. Alright, an important topic related to counteroffensive. Peculiar statement by the occupational authorities of Zaporozhye region, the occupied part of it. They're stating that counteroffensive of Ukraine may start in the few days or maybe hours. and that statement was made by temporary administrator, occupational administration, Baletsky. Before that was Rashkov, who was his aide, who was telling the same things, who was talking that there are Ukrainian forces moving towards Zaporozhye at night, and they're hiding in the daytime, but Ukraine is definitely gathering forces. And now it is his head out in the limelight, and he's saying not only days, but maybe even hours. So how would you address that? Do you think they're still provoking, or do they have actual information? I think it's an attempt to relieve themselves of any responsibility. We warned you, we forewarned you that there will be an offensive unfolding here soon. We did everything, and you didn't do anything, and Ukrainians pushed through and took Crimea. And we're not to blame. They're moving civilians not because they care about them. They are afraid that local population will be aiding Ukrainian forces and highlighting the positions of snipers and military on the Russian side and artillery and other units. That's not because they're humanistic. They just need secrecy and they cannot rely on local population. And they're taking active measures so that after, if they manage to survive our counteroffensive, they can come out later and say, well, we did everything we could. I was asking for more help, I was asking for more fortifications, and I was doing my work. You didn't provide me enough. I actually even warned you before that. So they're just covering their butts, basically. And what about the counteroffensive? What's your logic? It's not a secret, Mark. It will start sooner than we think, and we'll see. Well, let's address the obvious. When you see in the news that fuel depots are being taken out in all kinds, this is definitely a preliminary phase of counteroffensive. Everybody is slightly, even children familiar with military tactics, can see that this is the preliminary phase of an offensive maneuver. So, in some capacity, counteroffensive already started. It's already in the preparation stage. It's a huge multi-layered operation. It's not like lifting all the jets at 4 in the morning and shelling all the artillery on the enemy. Nobody's doing like that. Maybe on small parts of the front, but this is not a uniform. And, you know, Zaporozhye region is not the only one. It can happen anywhere. And with the same probability, you can expect it, roughly the same probability, you can expect action on any part of the front. And when it starts, who will know? Is it a main attack or is it a secondary attack? And it can be disguised different ways, or it could be, there could be 2 or 3 different directions, and depending upon success, one of them will become leading based on how successful it is. It's not like it's cast in bronze that nobody will deviate from it. That's how Russian military is trying to work. No, we're trying to be more maneuverable. We likely will be very flexible and see wherever we can succeed the most. That direction will become the main direction of the counteroffensive. And yeah, you know, it reminds me of a question of Russian officers. What about the flanks? What about moving your efforts towards the flanks? And they're drawing a blank stare, looking, asking, what the heck are you talking about? So that just reminds me that in many cases they behave like they haven't even finished the first year of military academy. This is the first year material. And there are 4 years, just FYI. So I suspect that their 370, 350,000 group military aggregation is much weaker than people think they are. They wasted a lot of good efforts and good money and good resources for some puny attempts to take Bakhmut or motion near Vuhledar or in Kremenaya. Are these the major strategic offensives that Russian troops can bring to the front? Yeah, they might have 120,000 reserves also somewhere, but you need to understand that at least 40% of them, they're just very light detachments who have rifles, maybe machine guns, and dress produced somewhere in 1941 of last century. What can they do? And they're not really trained well, and yeah, war is war. We should not take it too with too much bravado, there will be losses, but I suspect there'll be a lot of good surprises for us, and our enemies will have to see a lot of unpleasant surprises. And first of all will be due to bravery and to the leadership and mastery of Ukrainian commanders over their Russian counterparts. And the other part would be due to the weakness of our foes, of our opponents, because their morale is low, their skills are questionable, so yeah, their perspectives are pretty sad. And in general, imagine, just look back a year ago when the army was in much better shape. They got their asses kicked from near Kiev, from Kherson, from Sumy, and now, about a year later, when you have rusty guns, tanks from 1950s, all of a sudden you have an army that may be better. We see how they fight. They can only do the meat storms. Since the 2nd of August, they're storming the regional center. For 9 months, it's time probably to give birth, and they fail. You can fight with meat attempts, with meat tactics for maybe local little tasks, but you cannot wage that warfare on the whole front. Plus, big portions of this front is steppe, where maneuver and mastery is king. I don't think the word "like" is a good word here, but we'll feel a feeling of deep satisfaction when things start unfolding. All right, one more recording that Prigozhin posted just now. He's saying that Wagner will continue defending Bakhmut, as he calls it, Artyomovsk, to midnight of 10th, 0 o'clock of May 10th. And correct me if I'm wrong, or did he get the message to still do something by the 9th of May? So, Mark, 0 o'clock of the 10th is 1 second after the 9th is over. It's not from the 10th to 11th, it's from 9th to 10th. So, maybe just to hold it. And they probably did not expect to really take it. And why didn't they take it? He came out and said, "It's not us. It's the lack of shells. It's the inner bureaucracy fighting." Okay, so that just reaffirms that theory. We've been live for about 37 minutes. The last news I want to bring today. Look, overall, the unauthorized hits on Russian territory are actually growing. The the leaders of Shebekina in Belgorod region, they took a decision to stop some of the restaurants and service or companies of the town. The political leader, Vladimir Zhdanov, came out and said that there will be no celebrations and these industries are not going to be operating from 7th to 9th. Oh, and also Putin's spokesperson came out and said that he will come out on the 9th of May, so he will not be participating in it via Zoom or anything. We wouldn't trust them, right? They might use a double, but they're sure that no drone will fly and hit Putin when he'll be in the Red Square. So that was their statement. So, any comments to that, or what's your prognosis? Mark, this is a very subjective factor. It's difficult to prognosticate that. This is driven by decision of certain people, not even officials, could be private initiative. Perhaps somebody in Russia will try to do that and will play as if it is Ukrainian forces attacking them. So it's, 50-50 probability they'll either shoot or not. But we'll be surprised by the bravery of Vladimir or his double if he manages to climb the tribune on the Red Square on the 9th of May. All right, we'll see what happens. Let's take a look at the poll. We're at finish. So our question was, who tried to assassinate Prelipin? 35,800 voted. Ukraine is supported by 16%. His own, and it could be anybody from FSB to just criminal or personal issues, 84%. So we're concluding that, 16 to 84. That's the result of it. We'll see how the events continue to unfold. 143,000 were live with us today. We've been in an unusual time. So please share links, click the like button, click that bell, subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you have not done that yet. And we already got 62,000 likes. It's a non-standard stream, so we'll compensate with views at 10 p.m. on Monday, right? Right. All right, then we'll await you on Monday. Come then, and we'll continue talking about the events unfolding in live dynamics on the front and behind the lines. Olexiy, good luck. It was a good walk today. Oh yeah, awesome.